I'm talking about the bosses of Detroit's big three automakers. Again today, they were on Capitol Hill taking another stab at getting now $34 billion of your money. I'll happily pay taxes for a good cause, but bailing out the big three? Give me a break.
At least this week, when the CEOs descended in Washington to plead for money, they came by car.
You know, I'm proud to say that I drove a hybrid here from Detroit.
I guess they didn't like the backlash they got last month when Brian Ross pointed out that they'd flown in private jets.
I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you're planning to sell your jet in place now and fly back commercial. Let the record show no hands went up.
This week, the big three said they'd get rid of their jets and cut other costs because they need our money.
Well, I think
he's GM's boss, he's Ford's, he's Chrysler's. But then, who's the fourth guy?
We work hard on productivity every day.
He's Ron Gettelfinger, head of the Auto Workers Union. He says, don't blame us for Detroit's problems.
It is not our fault that the economy's in the tank.
It's just the economy that threatens the big three? Toyota isn't asking for a bailout, neither are Honda or Nissan. Yet they all sell and build cars in America. In fact, the very same week, the big three were begging for your money. Workers at Honda celebrated the first cars rolling off this new assembly line in Indiana.
Welcome, Civic One.
Why can Honda do it if the big three can't? Well, Gettelfinger's union is one reason. The big three have to deal with strikes like this one.
The number one issue here is job security.
The UAW even got the big three to create places where longtime workers who were not needed are still paid to just sit.
For the most part, our people just sit inside and do nothing.
I understand the good job Mr. Gettelfinger is doing on behalf of the employees that are not working but still being paid.
Tennessee Senator Bob Corker was one in Congress who thought jobs banks were a good reason not to give car makers your money.
If they idle a plant, they have to pay these employees for 4 years after the fact.
It's so dumb.
There's not an industry in America that is like this.
The UAW can't be the low-hanging fruit.
Last month, Gettelfinger said the unions would make no concessions. But this week, he said they'd suspend the jobs banks. So what, says economist Peter Marisi. The automakers have offered severance packages of more than $100,000.
Who else in America gets $105,000 when they're laid off?
But they say they're making concessions.
They're making cosmetic concessions.
The union would have to concede much more to make the big three's workers as efficient as, say, Honda. Honda just hired 900 Americans to work here.
How can Detroit possibly make cars paying $29 an hour plus all of those benefits and compete against Honda in Indiana that will be paying $18.41 an hour? And the cars show it. The upholstery is not as nice. Why? Because they have to pay these high labor costs, so they use cheaper materials.
Of course, the big three's management have made mistakes, too. They built cars that people didn't want. They were slow to innovate. Honda's advanced technology lets their plants nimbly switch from one product to another based on consumer demand. And Honda's never owned any private jets. Detroit CEOs wouldn't agree to an interview, but Michigan's Attorney General was eager to say that Detroit should get our money.
It's a crown jewel that we need to protect.
A bailout is Robin Hood in reverse, taking from everyone and giving money to people who earn above average.
Unfortunately, no one ever made that same argument when we gave $700 billion to Wall Street and people living in Manhattan. We're talking about 2.4 million jobs lost over 27 different states.
But wait a second, those jobs wouldn't necessarily be lost. Bankruptcy isn't death. Kmart didn't disappear when it went bankrupt.
We're creating the future.
Neither did Fruit of the Loom, Texaco, Continental Airlines, Delta, United. They were reorganized into more efficient, sustainable businesses. Out of this creative destruction, new jobs emerge.
America has a profit and loss system of capitalism. If you lose too much money, you close down, and someone else reorganizes the assets and brings you a better product.
We can't let the industry fail.
Bankruptcy at this point in time would be cataclysmic for the economy.
If Congress bails them out now, they won't get any better, and they'll be back next year and the year after and forever after that.
Some in Congress do worry about that.
My fear is that you're going to take this money and continue the same stupid decisions you've made for 25 years.
And sure enough, tonight, the Democrats report that they've reached a tentative agreement. The big three will be given $15 to $17 billion that's supposed to keep them afloat till March. Give me a break.